But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Ray, the professionals, and it's an hour and a half where we'll talk about ticketing issues. We'll bore everyone to death, and I'm only joking. Don't switch off. We're not going to talk about tickets. I can see a few people going, what? Just get that off. No, we're going to talk about Newcastle United for the next hour and a half, 90 minutes with the lads. Yeah, it's not a post-mortem. This week it's a celebration. We've got 3 points back on the saddle. Suddenly all the doom mongers have gone back under their stone, and we've got a week to look forward to. Of course, Milan on Tuesday, and then of course Sheffield United next weekend. And for those of you interested in what's going on at the moment, well, in the relegation battle game earlier on, it was 0-0 Bournemouth Chelsea, and we've got Everton Arsenal, which is still ongoing. Arsenal have just took the lead. Trossard with a wonderful goal, but pretty dire game. Super Sunday it has certainly not been. Jules, I see you in the chat. Good to meet you and your other half earlier on. It was nice to catch up for an hour. So good to see Jules up in Newcastle. Stu, where do we start then? Brentford came to St James's Park, tried to inflict another defeat on Newcastle, which would have been 4 in a row and would have had everybody crying into their beer. But it wasn't to be for Brentford and Mr. Frank. It was a 1-0 win for Newcastle and Eddie's boys. Deserved win, I thought. Only just, mind. I don't think we did. I don't think we dominated the game. Far from it. But I think a 1-0 win was the right result and a fair result.
Well, I think for the last hour we did dominate. We were by far the better side. The first 30 minutes, there was a few scary incidents and it seemed like the confidence wasn't there. But I think as Bruno grew into the game, that gave the team confidence. And we have to get used to teams like Brentford will come and try and sit and stifle us and play for the draw. The goalkeeper taking ages and ages and ages for goal kicks. And until we scored, then he was very quick at them. But I was pleased with the performance. They showed a lot of determination. And the belief seemed to be there as well. And it was good that a lot of the players got 90 minutes from them instead of getting changes for the sake of changing. So overall, I was very, very happy. I was confident before the game started. As you know, I always have 3-1, but I said to Mitch just before it started, I says I've put 4-0 on as well because I really thought we'd get in early and get the first goal and then build on it. But it wasn't to be, but they kept their heads up, which is really, really important. You know, they could have just got frustrated and left gaps, but they kept the shape. And most importantly, they had the belief to keep going. And some very dodgy refereeing decisions as well. The penalty that was given, the one that wasn't, to me, was more of a penalty than the one that we got. And I'm still confused of why the goal was disallowed as well for their goalkeeper making a rick. But hey-ho, 3 points. We're on the march again.
We are. Happy birthday to Jules, by the way. She is celebrating today. Yeah, happy birthday. I think everybody in the chat will jump on that as well. And what a day to do it on the anniversary of a wonderful European night, of course, at St James's Park in 1997 when Tino Asprilla hat-trick saw us beat Barcelona. And then another little quirk, which we learned about Jules's birthday. She comes up for her birthday to Newcastle. That they haven't been able to get tickets for the games. So they come up, they just enjoy everything that Newcastle's got to offer. Always find a bar to sit and watch it in. I think they went to the Star to watch it yesterday or whatever it's been renamed on Westcott Road. Had a great time. But the last 3 birthdays just come up has been Brentford at home each game. The 3-2, the 5-1 and the 1-0 all on the same day on our birthday. Unbelievable.
Strange.
Little quirk, yeah. So anyway, happy birthday, Jules. Hope you have a good night and a good day tomorrow. Yeah, Mitch, 1-0, well deserved.
Yeah, and for me, yesterday was about getting 3 points by any means. So you tick that box, it gets the wheels back on the wagon, as it were. And there's plenty of talking points come out of the game. You could talk about selection, you could talk about performances, you could talk about intensity or lack thereof for a little while. Certainly plenty to talk about VAR. We got one penalty. We then didn't get another penalty when somebody's arm is clearly in an unnatural position. Unless you're non-verbal and exclusively communicate through the medium of expressive dance, that's not a normal position to have your arm in.
I've got it. Hold on. Spenny sent me these earlier.
Yeah. And if you think Dan Burn got a penalty given against him for something very similar against Spurs last year, yeah, and he's back to the ball, he's not looking at the ball, and you've got your arm in an unnatural position. So what's the difference? I don't see any difference there. So unless somebody sneakily changed the rules again about what they are looking at, I'm looking at two incidents which are very, very similar. Mm-hmm. And so why isn't that, why shouldn't that be a penalty when the other one was given? And then you look at the extra stoppage time, and about 6 minutes of that 9 was about Pawson arguing with himself and VAR about whether it was a penalty or not. Nothing to do with us. And you've got their manager losing his bracket in the post-match conference. I mean, God, can you imagine his eyes staring at you through a letterbox? Would be really terrifying. He's like a bloody serial killer's eyes.
Blamed the ball boys, didn't he?
He's had to go to the ball boys. He had to go to everybody. And that's ridiculous. And so, there's plenty to talk about there. Wilson's goal being cancelled out for one of the weakest displays of goalkeeping I've seen in a long, long time. If our goalkeeper did anything like that, I'd be furious. Absolutely furious that he was expecting to get help from the referee. And he got the help he was expecting. He bottled that totally. That was just pathetic. It was weak, to say the least. I think I'm being kind calling it weak. So, all in all, it could have been a very different result as well. I think we handled their attacking threats reasonably well. Though Pope did have to, he did have his hands warmed on a couple of occasions, but I think overall, yes, we deserved the 3 points. And as far as I'm concerned, that was the mission critical point of it. The performance really doesn't matter too much on the back of that. We've got the 3 points we deserved, and then there you go. And so we'll move on happily and go on to pastures new in the Champions League again, which is sort of a wonderful thing to be looking forward to. And we'll have to remind ourselves that. And I think the other thing that's come out of the game for me, substitutions and lack thereof, probably shows a hint at what Eddie's thinking for Tuesday night. And I think some people would definitely be fully rested and would have probably only been used in an emergency. And so I think we can probably start a piece of team together for Tuesday night, and looking forward to it.
Simone always asks, smile if you're live. Simone, we are live, and we are smiling because we won. But look, lots of questions coming in, lots of points. Paul did message me this earlier today. He said, question for the professionals. Do you think Eddie changed our style of play yesterday? We didn't seem to adopt a high press against Brentford, or was I seeing things because of the 5 changes? I think it was a little bit of both, Stu, but I also think credit to Brentford who came with a different game plan. I mean, after getting, spanked 5-1 last year, then, they certainly wouldn't want to go away from St. James's Park with another hiding. And we'll have to remember they were in a good run of form. I think it was I think we mentioned on the show on Friday that they'd won 5 of the last 6 games at the end of last season. I think they'd drawn 3 and won 1 at the start of this season. So they're not on a bad run. So, they came with a completely different mindset, and they've had to reinvent their game because Ivan Toney's sitting, idly doing nothing. So, a little bit of credit to Brentford, but I've got to be honest as well. If you were Eddie Howe yesterday, you must have been thinking, do everything not to lose this game, and make sure that we keep a clean sheet. And they got what they wanted in the end.
Yeah. I think yesterday the start of the game cautious, and they were more feared of losing the game than actually going to win it initially. And that you could tell that in the confidence, but that grew during the game. So the apprehension seemed to disappear. There was one incident in the first half where we were looking at a press and we had 3 people doing the press from one of their goal kicks. And I pointed out to you, but you remember Sean Longstaff ran about 40 yards to close one of the outlets that the keeper had. So then the keeper had to kick it, and we won the ball back, and that put us straight back in there. And little things like that sometimes go unnoticed and don't get mentioned enough, you know. So, and it was credit where Longstaff just thought, you know what, is if he gets there, they're going to turn, they'll be facing us and they're running at us. And they were, I think we were just that bit frightened because of the way the results had went. And taking it yesterday, it built up and built up and built up. And you could even hear it in the crowd. Now, unfortunately for us two, and the fantastic company that we were in, we were blessed with Jim Beglin commentary. And he started talking about the handball. He's the most biased. Honestly, you'd think he was a macker, wouldn't you, with some of the stuff he comes out with against Newcastle. But he went for the handball. His answer for why it wasn't a penalty was, well, it hardly hit his hand. So I didn't realise there had to be a certain speed or velocity of the ball hitting the arm for it to not be given or given. You know, it doesn't matter. So he's admitted it's hit his arm, and then he's just said, but it barely touched it. It doesn't matter. It touched it. It was a penalty. So there was loads of things like that. But getting back to the original point, yes, the press, I thought it got better as the game went on, and people were getting more used to their particular roles. Gordon on the right, he in particular grew into the game, and again was still non-stop running at the end. In flashes, I thought Elliot Anderson played really well, and for me, I thought Bruno was our man of the match. He started, you could see he had that top skip and his step and everything else, and he was trying to dictate play. Although he did look rather angry over one incident. If you recall that, he looked really, really unhappy about something. But going along with it, I'm really happy that we got the win. And now I think we're going to Tuesday full of confidence. And as Mitch alluded to there, I think for me it's quite clear certain people will start because they're on the bench who we normally have in the first 11 and they didn't come on at all. Isaac being one of them. And I think he'll replace Wilson, and that's why he stayed on the full game. I can't expect Wilson to put a shift in like that 2 games in 3 days. So I think it's best to rest him and bring him back for next week. But that's my thoughts.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, I think it was just an accumulation of a few things, Mitch, wasn't it? I mean, there was 5 changes first of all. But again, Brentford came with a game plan to stifle us a little bit. And I think, yeah, I don't think we've lost the high press and the intensity. I just think it's horses for courses.
I think we were a little more tentative in the first half. And some of that may be a confidence issue too. You know, we grew into the game. That was clear. The longer the game went on, the better we got about and the more intensity came out. I think that was pretty clear to me as well. I think proven, quite rightly, as I just said there in the chat, proven that we can win, we're making changes. It gives the whole squad a boost. It means everybody knows that they're going to get. I see everybody, complaining about not making enough substitutions and why we spent money on this one and why we spent money on that one. We're 5 games into a season where we could potentially play 50 games. And so I think that's why we spent money on this one and that one, and you're going to see more rotation as the season goes on. I think what Eddie would like to see is that any 11 that he puts out can play in the same kind of way, so people can chop and change and slot in and slot out without too much disruption to the functionality of the team. And so whilst everyone is still getting used to that, we're only 5 games into this new season, which I think we've got plenty of time still. I think we're around about where we were at the same time last season, and look at how the season finished. And so, I think everybody pushing the panic button after 3 or 4 games, I get it, because we deserve to have had more out of some of the games we didn't get anything out of. But 3 points was what it was all about, and as Stu rightly says, it's clear a couple of people are definitely going to be straight in and fresh for Tuesday, and I think that's quite important too. let's remember Milan got a humping in that derby at the weekend. They're going to be. It'll be interesting to see what their reaction is. Are they going to react to us and come out swinging, or are they going to be, still down on the luck and wounded and licking their wounds in the corner? For me, it would be nice to go there with a little bit of swagger, with a team full of confidence and fresh, and stick one up them, captain. I think that for me would be the attitude. Is hopefully when they analyse the game against Inter, they can see where some of those weaknesses were, and maybe we're just the team to exploit some of those weaknesses.
Okay, I don't want to dwell too much on the game, but I know there's a couple of questions coming in from different people about different things, so we'll cover them, and then we can start looking ahead to Milan. Where do I go with this one? Councillor Spenny, good evening, Spenny. He says, question for the panel: do you think Barnes and Anderson took their chance yesterday? I don't think they did. I think Tonali will be playing Tuesday, and Isak relaxing Barnes. Evening, everyone. I don't think Anderson particularly fared well in the formation. I wouldn't say he didn't take his chance. I think as Stu's already mentioned, I think Longstaff didn't get any credit off anybody. Yet he basically did what Eddie Howe knows he can do. He does the dirty work. He runs his heart into the ground. He had an absolute blinder yesterday for me, Longstaff, and didn't even get mentioned in dispatches on social media. I thought Gordon was probably the better of the two between him and Barnes yesterday. But I thought Barnes had a good game as well. And I also thought we saw a better Bruno yesterday. I thought Bruno did well. So I don't really have a criticism of the midfield. I think Gordon, it looked lopsided because we're not used to seeing Gordon play where he played. But I just thought it showed the guy's that talented. He can play anywhere. He can play up front. He can play behind the front. A front two. He can play on the right. He can play on the left. Probably play centre half. Gordon. He's that good a player. But I couldn't pick fault. I just felt with Anderson, I was pleased to see him get a full game, more or less under his belt for the first team, and he learned more from that game than he learned from any other now. And it was great, and that's the way it's got to be for the rest of the season. Anderson's going to get plenty of opportunities, and in one game he'll take them. But it wasn't that kind of game where you're going to see Anderson, get a couple of goals and put himself into the the Toon record books. I think it was just a good team performance. Stu?
Yeah, I think watching Anderson yesterday, and of course with the Scotland thing, I've got a more well, and you know what I was pleased with him for. He was always demanding the ball, always looking for space, always wanting the ball. He wasn't overrode. He was on that pitch believing in himself that I'm good enough to be on this pitch. But I think sometimes when you have a raw natural talent like that, they can be suppressed because they're scared of making that mistake initially. He's normally a flair, isn't he? He can take people on, and he's got the eye for a defence split and pass. But again, it's just doing the simple things, and that I think that's how we started the game off, as I said, with apprehension and caution. And it took a while for, especially when Brentford had a few attacks as well, and a few near misses and close shaves, etc. We started thinking, right, this is where I honestly think the crowd played a big part as well. They stayed with them. They stayed with the team, and the team responded. And together, I'll take a scruffy 1-0 to get the losses off the back. And it's games like that. It's a sign of a good team, isn't it? Yes, we would have loved to go and win 4-0 in swashbuckling football that we know they can play. But at the minute, I think Mitch said at the start there was take 3 points any which way we could get it. And that's how we did. And even at the end, when Wilson was having the ball in the corner, we had Jim Beglin saying, this time wasting, it's terrible. But when Haaland was doing it for Man City against us, it was great man management. What a player, where he is. Same commentator about exactly. So it's like, we have to get that siege mentality back. And I think you could see yesterday that they had it. And when we had the benefit, I know those at the game didn't, but we had the benefit of a close-up of Wilson before the penalty. And you could see, not only was he focused, but he was visualising him scoring. And I think that's got to be some things that's going on behind the scenes, you know, where they have the sports psychologists and stuff like that. You could see him visualizing, and he had a little grit to himself, and he put it exactly where he wanted to. And then you can see the relief was palpable on Eddie Howe's face as well, because he doesn't normally show emotion. But when that ball went in, he was like, great. I mean, I'm still unsure if that penalty had been given against us. Like, I think we might have been starting today a bit different. But we've already discussed the other one that was disallowed. Should have been a penalty. So I can't be unhappy with the fact that we've got 3 points. And yes, we weren't fantastic spreading them about and scoring goals for fun, but it showed a different side as Newcastle. It showed a resilience, and it shows a determination, and that they were willing to fight for each other as well. So more of the same. And if we win the next 3 games 1-0, I think everyone's going to be happy. You know, we can't all win every game 3-1, 4-0, whatever. So take the 1-0s when they come. And something that's not been mentioned yet, we had a clean sheet. It's been a while since we had one of those.
Yeah, I mean, I made it at the top of the show, just saying that was the most important thing. I think we'd had 2 since February, but going into that game. So to get a clean sheet will have done Nick Pope's confidence the world of good, because again, he got a bit of stick after the Brighton game on social media. But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, the clean sheet was very, very important, especially going into the game against Milan. But what was your thoughts on the midfield performances? Because, you know, the tone of Spenny's question was he didn't feel that some of those players took their chance, Anderson in particular.
If Anderson's guilty of anything, I think he was trying too hard.
Yeah.
I think at times he really wanted to, he was trying to force things to happen. Mm-hmm. And I think that's maybe, if that's a fault, then that's what he was doing for me. And maybe as time goes on and he gets more used to being in the first team, you relax a little bit and not try so hard. There's a couple of good things we picked up on in the second half, particularly when he was matched up against Hickey. You could tell he'd played against him in training all the way through the Scotland setup. He seemed to know how to upset him. He seemed to know how to rattle him. He seemed to know how to hustle him and hassle him on the ball. Yeah, and so, you know, that's a sign of a footballer who's got a bit of intelligence about him, you know. And I think, you know, give him his due, as he gets used to first team games, he'll come more and more into his own. I'm quite sure of that. Barnes for me is all hustle and bustle, and some days it'll look brilliant, and some days it'll not necessarily always pay off. I think yesterday was one of those ones where it hasn't necessarily paid off to the same level, but I think if you see the work he gets through and the effort he puts in, and he regularly pins the fullback ears back, I think he'll have more good days than bad days. And I don't think yesterday was a bad day as such. It was just wasn't special, you know. Well, that isn't going to happen every week if you're going to look at individuals.
That's how it was. That roll the sleeves and get it done. To a man, the old battle.
And they got the job done, and that was the mission critical thing yesterday. 3 points at all costs, and let's, you know, see what comes out in the mixer at the end. I think it is rightly puts you in a far better frame of mind across the board, top to bottom, in the club and within the fan base, looking ahead to Tuesday night. And so, and those players will get more chances. We'll need everybody as the game goes on, because, like I say, there's a potential, if we do well in all cup competitions we're in, we could be seeing 50 games this season. And the amount of games we played last season stretched our squad far enough. And we haven't really made a massive amount of additions to stretch the game a little further forward, you know. So I think we have to think about that, and that everybody's going to get their turn, everybody's going to get the chance, and we're going to need everybody somewhere down the line. And that's what we're going to get used to, is the rotation and back in the rotation and back in the changes, and not getting upset when your favourite player's taken out the lineup because he needs a rest or he's injured or what have you. And I think everybody, it's getting used to new mindsets. I was talking yesterday to a good friend out here, John, and he had his little one with him, and the little one was a little bit disappointed because the little one is of the age where he's had his first full season last season watching the town, and he thinks, you know, he's used to winning. He's used to seeing, you know, playing with style and panache and humping teams. God, I wish that was my childhood. and I had a little chat with the little one yesterday, and I said to her, look, it's a mindset. Don't worry about it. We're going to get there. You take the 3 points where you can. You're going to see a lot more good days than not so good days, and enjoy every bloody minute. We've got a great game to look forward to in midweek. And as a fan base, kind of, we have to learn to have that big club mentality. You know, would you see fans of Liverpool and Man United whinging on about certain things? The Man United fans are too busy whinging on about owners who've spent billions of pounds, and Liverpool fans are too busy whinging along with their manager about anything and everything and absolutely everything, including the way the wind's blown and what colour somebody's socks are. And so, you know, I think we have to learn that sort of, almost that little bit of arrogance that we expect to take 3 points, but we take 3 points as they come because we knew we were always going to do it anyway. And that takes a big mindset change for us. We've been talking about it last season about, as a fan base, we have to go through certain mindset changes. As the club grows, we're growing quickly, we're growing globally quickly. And there are so many things as supporters we have to absorb at the minute. And I keep going back to absorb the bloody lovely things like trips to Milan, and get used to it because there's going to be more of them. Yeah,
Arsenal have won 1-0 at Everton. Everton climb back into the bottom three where they belong. And it's another bit of commentary there. I didn't hear it, but I did see what was going on there. I did see the time wasting by Arsenal in the corner. And as Chantel's just pointed out, Arsenal doing what Wilson did in the corner. And the commentator said it's good play from Arsenal. Yeah, but this is what I watched the Brentford game again last night. Alan Smith's a nightmare for Newcastle. They had Shea Given in the studio. They had Alan Smith commentating. And Alan Smith's the same. Can't stand, you can tell there's this overly biased attitude towards whoever Newcastle are playing. And whenever there's a decision made, it's always, well, you know, that's wrong. But if it's against Newcastle, yeah, well, that's that's exactly right. That's the way it should be. So it's not
Steve,
unusual.
We've said this a couple of times. When we're on the commentary provided to the Middle East, your heart sinks when you realise the co-commentator is Jim Beglin. Because I don't know whether his missus has ran off with a Geordie. I had to double check, did he badly break his leg at St James's Park or something like that, you know? Because the bitterness is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. That he was almost willing Brentford to score yesterday. He had the desperation in his voice. It was bizarre, and it's not getting any better. It's getting worse. Last season was bad enough, and this season it looks like it's going to be just as bad, if not worse.
Yeah. Interesting to see the league table, though. Newcastle back down into 11th place, but early days. I'm sure they'll climb the table over the next couple of weeks. Empty seats, not quite ticketing, lads, but empty seats. Yeah, there was a few people posting photographs on social media. I've seen a little bit of anger going backwards and forwards. Just seen the tweet about empty seats yesterday with so many wanting to go. What can be done about this? Says David. And Tom Dixon says, what's your thoughts on empty seats at the game yesterday? I mean, I've got to be honest. I didn't see empty seats, but where you depends where you sit in the ground is where you'll see them. Apparently, it was in the director's box, Stu. Is that because he's gone? You're on mute, Stu, for some reason. I can't hear you.
I'm on mute.
Oh yeah, I can hear you now. Well, I don't know whether you were just miming there or whatever, but I couldn't hear you. Your volume keeps going off.
It shouldn't do.
All right, I can hear you now. So go on. Empty seats in the corporate.
Well, there was empty seats in the Brentford end, so that would have brought the attendance down. But the corporate, I think those seats count for the attendance anyway, irrespective if they're taken or not. I think they're already allocated. But it does beg a bigger question when our people are unlucky in a ballot, and then you see sections of empty seats. That's needs explaining. You know, it's not just one or two people going for a pint or something 10 minutes before half time. There's blocks of them, isn't it? There's like rows of 10 or 20 in certain blocks that have been obviously set aside for people. Now, those tickets may have already been purchased. It could have been, I don't know, like Andre, for example, the Bulgarian supporters club, bringing 20 people and they never made it because of the kickoff times or whatever. But if the seats are empty, then to me it's wrong, especially the demand for people getting there. And every week we hear we read about how someone's been unlucky in a ballot again. Put them on general sale. Mm-hmm. You know, if they're doing it to make more money, if they know there's going to be surplus tickets, put them on general sale. Go on the ground before 12 o'clock or whatever it is. You've got 9 till 12. Queue up as they did in the old days, and you'd fill the ground up, no problem. So sometimes it could be a case of cutting the nose to spite the face.
Yeah, just empty seats in the corporate.
For Spenny as well. He asked a question earlier about the England score. England beat Scotland 3-1, Spenny. But if you had proper Wi-Fi in the Mackham village you lived in, you'd know that.
Way! I'm waiting for the bite now. I'm waiting for the bite. Yeah, I mean, empty seats in the corporate. And there were tickets on sale yesterday, Mitch. And I got a text off somebody who I know the tickets were genuine. There was multiple tickets available in the Gallagher and the Leazes on Friday. I heard there was somebody flogging them for about 80 quid. Where those tickets have come from, I've got no idea. And again, we've seen them on all these sites, but the club just need to come out and get this nipped in the bud, don't they, really?
Yeah, it's an additional frustration at a time and a place we don't need it.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. I could understand empty seats based simply on the change of the kickoff time. You know, we know the inconvenience for Andre and the Bulgarian lads because they had flights booked that I think got them in at 20 minutes before kickoff or something like that. Yeah. You know, so there may have been, say, for example, if there's another overseas supporters club that had multiple tickets booked. I know there was talk about them, either the Danish or the Norwegian lads were getting first dibs at trying a group booking from overseas. But if that was all changed late on and people's travel plans were knackered, then that's not going to go ahead. I've also seen chat that some people with season tickets who, again, couldn't attend because of the change of the kickoff time aren't really sure how to pass that ticket on anymore and aren't sure how it's resold or aren't sure how they can give it to family and friends. And I think there's a lot of people might need help and clarity with that a little bit. And it would be great. I know they probably don't have the manpower to have somebody to do something like that straight away. But that's something I think they should be looking at, is putting somebody installed at the ticket office to genuinely assist people who aren't sure about what they kind of do with a digital ticket and how they do and don't pass it on, or how it is or isn't resold. It's all very well, you know, those of us who are tech savvy and aren't necessarily Luddites. It's, you know, being holier than thou, you know, it's very simple. You just do this, you just do that. Yeah, but, you know, there are a lot of people who aren't that tech savvy and who need a little bit of a hand. And so there's all of these things going on, and all of these things will contribute to empty seats in the ground. I'm quite sure of that. And it will get better as the season goes on. Like the situation in aways will get better as the season goes on. And so, you know, I think this is something whereby, you know, that people get the help they need to understand how to do things like that.
Yeah. That's all it is. I think, you know, it's a small amount, but yeah, the ticketing thing is always going to rear its head. So, you know, we're not going to go on about it tonight, but, you know, if you do have issues and you want to bring it up, we will always discuss it. So that's ticketing for tonight. Anyway, you can't second guess who's not going to turn up. How can you resell seats that are already sold? It's a good point, Neil, but we're not going to drag tickets on tonight. Go on, Stu.
There could be a bit of because the way it's been done and the way it's been there's a lack of communication. That's something that we've referred to quite a lot. That there's a fear of people not knowing what to do, or if they do something, are they going to lose the ticket and they might lose the season ticket. You know, the story gets developed, doesn't it? If you do this, that'll happen, and if you do that, and you give your ticket to someone else who could go, no, but I'll lose my ticket, and the clarity or help there, you know. But if there was like 5 or 6 different areas where you've got 1 or 2 empty seats, you take that and think, right, it's fair enough. The game's changed times. People might have to start work, or they've got to like look after their bands or something. There's so many, or they could be going to like a wedding party or something like that. That's if it was a 3 o'clock kickoff, they could make it. At 5:30, they couldn't. But when you're seeing blocks of tickets, it gives the impression that they hadn't been sold or they were held back for something else. That's all. But I think a lot of it could be people, if they know they're not going in the past, mate, there you go. There's my season ticket. Just bring the card back. But now they're scared of passing it on in case they lose that season ticket. And that's the thing. That's where I got the word out from. People are worried about. It's the fear of loss thing that makes people take these decisions. I think I'd rather not give my ticket to anyone in case I lose it, so the seat will sit empty.
Okay. Donald asks a question. He says, question, with Joe Linton maybe out for a while. Obviously, we heard the news over the weekend that he's going to be laid off for a few weeks. It's not too serious, but it is a reoccurrence of his knee injury. Should Anderson be moulded into the box-to-box position like J7? Stu?
Well, yeah. He's capable of doing it for sure. And if we're having these 3 in the midfield, and you need left-hand side, don't you?
Yeah.
And if they're going to play Tonali on the left-hand side, you've got a right foot on the left-hand side. Is he willing to do the graft backwards and forwards to cover the same sort of yards that Anderson's willing to do? So if he's going to get a run the team, you've got to look at that. If that's the position he's earmarked for, you've got a team of 11, then you get the next 11 who can replace them. If he's the replacement for the left side midfielder, and then you start putting square pegs in round holes, you'll just destroy the lad's confidence anyway. You think, well, what's the point? Yeah. That's my person who's meant to be playing it. Joe Linton's not there, so I get the nod. And if he has 2 or 3 games on the bounce and he has 2 or 3 stinkers, then he can't blame anyone but himself. But what you don't want is behind the scenes him thinking, well, look, even when the person who's in front of me isn't playing, I'm still not playing. Then you've got to start questioning, should I go somewhere else for my career? So I would give him a run in, and throwing him into something like the San Siro, I think he would thrive on it, me. If you looked at him in the big stadiums in America pre-season, I know it's pre-season, but they're playing Premier League teams. I've got no qualms of playing Anderson on Tuesday night, and I think he'll come on for the experiences as well. We can only benefit by playing him.
What's your thoughts on that, Mitch? On Anderson potentially, being, pushed into that Joe Linton role. Do you think we'll see more of that?
Don't see why not. We came back pre-season looking very fit, looking like you put a few extra kgs on in the right way. And he could use that very much in the way that Joe Linton does. And he's got an opportunity to carve a role and a place in that midfield for himself while Willock and Joe Linton are out of the equation. And Eddie very much is the kind of person who will, give somebody the respect of they've earned the position and stick with them. He doesn't chop and change often. Some would say maybe it's to a fault. But he's got an opportunity. It's a great opportunity, and I'd back it all the way. I'd be delighted for him to say, right, this is my chance. I want this shirt on a regular basis. Try and remove me from this team. And we can only just encourage that.
Yeah, I agree. I'd love to see Anderson, really make a go of it at Newcastle. I think he's worked hard. He's got to this position. Now he's got to kick on and do the next thing. And yeah, lots of people saying, when's Willock due back? Well, it's not October, but ultimately, if Willock comes back in, suddenly it changes the dimension again. You'd say Willock's probably one of Howe's blue chip players, and it's another person to chuck into this midfield conundrum. So the main thing is it's competition for places, and everybody knows in that midfield that they've got somebody breathing down their neck for their position. And that can only be a positive thing for Newcastle. Eddie's just got to find the right recipe in each game. And that's where squad rotation comes in. Man City do it. Who on earth would have said after the Man City game against Newcastle, where Phil Foden was head and shoulders above anybody else on that pitch, completely dominated that game from start to finish? Who would have said the following week he would have been on the bench? Yeah. That's where Newcastle. We've got to get used to that. We've got to get used to the fact that Bruno could have an absolute barnstormer and get 2 goals and 2 assists in a game, and the following week he's on the bench, and that's what good teams do. That's, you know, because you've got that level of player. So Newcastle fans, you're gonna have to get used to it. I'm afraid it's not all about having the same 11 playing every week. It doesn't work, especially when Mitch has said it twice already tonight. You could end up playing 50 games in a season, which is ideally what you want to do, because that means you've had a successful season. Okay, we are halfway through the show, so we will let the lads go for a quick break. Here's the ads. Big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at skipsandbins.com or telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website skipsandbins.com. Easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Big thanks to Mr. Vicky's sauces handmade in Cumbria. You can order them from their website, mrvickys.co.uk, or by telephoning 01768 210 102. A big thanks also to New Workwear. You can find them at newworkwear.com. They are an agile and dedicated workwear provider. Welcome back as well to United Travel. They are a UK coaches firm, and they are based in the Northeast. They've got 2024 tours, and you can contact them on 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. Email info@unitedgrouptravel.com, and they've got a website which is unitedgrouptravel.com. There's no strangers on their tours, just people you haven't met yet. Big thanks to them for their sponsorship. Big thanks as well to Media Arts, and they supply all the video technology. If you want to become a member and get a cup, a pen, a membership card, and a scarf, then get your smartphone and put it over this QR code. It will take you straight to the membership pack. It's a £25 one-off fee. You can also go to NUFC Matters website and search membership pack to book today. If you want to help the channel, then subscribe to it by hitting the subscribe button. Hit the thumb up under the video to like the video, and click share to share to your other social media. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. Don't forget, we help the food bank on this channel. If you want to do so virtually, go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and make a donation today. The Alan Shearer raffle is back on. 150 tickets, £1 a ticket. Win a limited edition signed Alan Shearer ball. Enter today at nufcmatters.com. And just a shameless plug for the Northeast Footy Breakfast Show. I'm into my 4th week doing this, unbelievably. And I am at this moment in time, 7 o'clock until 9 o'clock, working with a Middlesbrough fan, Ryan, who is based in Australia, and Macca, the Sunderland fan, who lives in Durham. And I cover the Newcastle section as well. It's been a lot of fun, but we're into week 4. Big thanks to Dunnell, who's obviously a regular in the chat. He's been taking part in some of the quizzes and stuff that's been going on, but it's been very enjoyable. It is on DAB radio, DAB radio, smart speakers, and it's online as well. All you need to do is search the Tune Radio, and you'll be able to find it on there. You can also tune in. If the system's down on that, you can tune in to the Red Radio or the Cat Radio, and you'll get exactly the same program between 7 and 9. But it is good banter. It is good crack. It's going to be even better tomorrow, because obviously Newcastle United have won. Middlesbrough got beat again, but the Macca's won. So the Macca will be, he'll be cock a hoop. But we don't just talk about the Northeast football scene. We talk about anything that's in the football news. So please give us a follow and give us a join. And if you can, and you're on your way to work or you're getting up and getting the kids ready, have it on the background. It is a good laugh. And don't forget as well, we have got the Kieran Trippier print, and I've forgotten to publicised this all week last week. 38 tickets have gone, so there's 61 left. If anybody wants to have a go at this, it's £1 to enter. Get yourself on NUFCmatters.com. You could win a signed Kieran Trippier print. It's a nice glossy photo. So you've got to be in it to win it, folks. Get yourself on the website to have a go with that today. And John has also created some wonderful new T-shirts. I'll give them a plug tomorrow, but they're have you ever seen a Mackham in Milan T-shirts? Get yourself on there. And I know there's another one incoming. Somebody, I think it was Paul Burdis, inboxed us and said, you've got to get John to make a T-shirt. It was Callum Wilson's line yesterday. Pressures for tyres. Pressure's only for tyres, he said yesterday. So I think he's going to knock up a T-shirt for that, which will be another one to add to the range. And speaking about Callum Wilson, penalties. Sometimes Newcastle United have been absolutely rank useless. Haven't had a great penalty taker. We've had some great ones, of course. Alan Shearer, straight down the middle. Nobby Solano was pretty good. Didn't bend under pressure. But Callum Wilson nicked this off Sky earlier this morning. Not a bad strike rate, that, lads. Not a bad strike rate at all. 93.8%. Only Matt Letizia, Danny Murphy, and James Beattie ahead of him. As far as percentage for penalties, 15 plus penalties. That's some going, isn't it, Stu? Because it is a pressure, because you think as a footballer, you're getting paid all that money, you're a centre forward, you hit the back of the net on a regular basis, that's what you get paid for. Hitting the ball from the penalty spot should be the easiest thing in the world, shouldn't it? But it makes some men crumble.
Yeah, it does. But this is what I talked about just before there. They had a close-up on Wilson, and you could see that he was visualising how he was going to put the ball in the net and exactly where he was going to place it, and he just zoned out as if there was no crowd there whatsoever. But he's when the club it was last season, I think, Mitch, wasn't it? They had the competition to see who would take the penalties, and Chris Wood won it.
Right.
And he scored some fantastic penalties, always in the top left corner. That's where he put them. So, but Wilson, if he misses one, I don't think that would bother him either, because he's got that much belief in his own ability that if we've got a penalty 2 minutes later, he picked the ball up and won it again. And I know yesterday someone said, Wilson's going to take it. Someone wants it, and Mitch went, good luck trying to get the ball off him. And that's what you want. You want your number 9 saying, I'm taking this. And that's it. There was no debate about it. He's on that pitch to score goals. And for him, it's a shoo-in. It's a great opportunity to score goals. And he took it really, really well.
Yeah.
And as long as we keep getting penalties and he's on the pitch, I'm more than happy for him to take them. Law of averages says eventually you miss one, but hopefully it's when we're 4-0 up, not when we're 1-0 down or it's 1-0 for 2 minutes. But no, I thought he put it away very well, and he's confident, isn't he?
Yeah, interesting, wasn't it? To be honest, Mitch, just to see the camera focused on him, and yeah, I mean that's the kind of person, isn't it, that you want to take a penalty.
It's all about confidence, isn't it? And I think that's the one thing, those 4 names you put on the screen, they're all people who are very confident in themselves. You know, even of late, Matthew Letizia is confident enough to spout all kinds of rubbish. And Danny Murphy's confident enough to spout all kinds of bollocks on the radio as well about football, and doesn't really care about what anybody else says about them. But yeah, it's confidence in your own ability. And on the spot like that, in front of 50,000, it sounds easy, but the amount of players who can't, and the amount of players who shirk taking penalties, and like I said to Stu yesterday, try and get the ball off him, you'd have any skin left on your hands. I think you'd fight your tooth and nail for it, and that's exactly what you want.
Yeah, I saw that, Dave. He says, I thought it was funny. Trips was holding the ball to try tricking Brentford. We started singing, hey, Callum Wilson, and me went right to Wilson. Yeah, it's a bit of game management. Brentford did a bit of that yesterday, mind, as well, to be perfectly honest. Who else can take a penalty? I think Tonali would be a good penalty taker. I'd like to see him take a few free kicks when he's on the pitch, Tom, because I remember at the start of the season, we were told how good Tonali was with free kicks, and he'd be probably having a variety, but Trippier seems to be still taking the majority. And I mean, there was a few scuffed opportunities yesterday. I know Tonali wasn't playing, but it would be nice to see a little bit of variety. Although I do think, to be honest, there's been a little bit more originality with corners. We seem to be trying different things with corners. There is definitely a change, but with free kicks, it seems to be left to Trippier. And I'm not complaining, but at the end of the day, it would be nice to. It would be nice to see some variety on the free kicks. Yes, Chippers, I thought you would bring this up. Can I ask Stu why he thinks I look like John Parrott?
Well, I'm looking like really, wasn't it? It's because you look like. So there's a few more to come. Don't worry.
Well, he's put his head above the parrot pit now, hasn't he?
Hey.
Question for the lads from Ian, who will be on the fans forum tomorrow night. He says, what do you think of the criticism from a section of the fan base about Bruno's performance yesterday? Personally, I don't think they understand football because he ran the game.
I'm with you. I thought he grew into the game and he started dictating the play. And when you have Bruno demanding the ball and wanting the ball and then starts passing it and starts showing it, it's like you don't want to say Bruno of old because he's only been here for like a season and a half, but like in the first half of last season. But you have to understand, most teams know that our momentum goes through him, and he gets a lot more marks now than he used to get. So they think if you stop Bruno, you stop Newcastle. But he was, instead of just walking around in his like 20 metre square, he was darting about looking for the ball, one touch, take it, look again. And that, to me, I thought that was his best game he's had for about 6 months for us. I was really, really happy with his performance yesterday.
Yeah, I love this show from Ferry Hill Mags. He says, Tonali over the wall against Milan. You heard it here first. Yeah, that would be good. Worth a daft couple of quid. It definitely is. Yeah, I mean, the Bruno criticism has been something that's dominated social media for the last few weeks, but I thought he looked back to his best yesterday. And I'm not going to say that because Tonali wasn't playing. Footballers can have ups and downs. Look at what's happened with Richarlison at Tottenham. Goes to see a psychiatrist and he scores a wonderful goal yesterday and puts an assist in. I mean, footballers have ups and downs. They're just the same as us. They're humans at the end of the day, Mitch.
And I think we're in a world of everybody's super interested in stats and analysis, and everybody wants to FIFA or Championship Manager everything. At the end of the day, we win as a team and we lose as a team.
Yep.
And that's the way I try to keep looking at it. And within that team, some will perform well and some will not perform so well. And you give criticism where it's due. I saw some people criticising Burn again yesterday. Yet for me, there was a header later on that he won. That because of his size, he won it. Most left backs in the league would never have got anywhere near that. And so you take your swings and roundabouts. Let's just look at the overall performances, and the only thing that matters is taking 3 points. And most of the time, professional footballers, form is temporary, class is permanent. All the eulogizing you can think of, all these things about the cream always rising, and it's very true. Bruno, along with the team, set himself and us a very high bar last season. You also have to bear in mind, of all the players who were away for internationals, he was the one that was in that starting lineup. Potentially, what traveling through the night from South America does to your body clock, etc. You have to bear all that in mind too. It's if it's a good enough excuse for someone like Klopp to use it, I think we should be allowed to use it. But as far as Bruno's concerned, my only problem is when he starts to get frustrated with himself and he starts putting silly challenges in. That's when I get worried about Bruno. And there was only one probably 5-minute period where he had a very big scowl on his face. And you think, oh, here we go. And that's the only thing I worry about with him. Everything else, he always gives 100%, even when he's not firing on all cylinders. And you can't ask anything more from any player.
Okay, lots of other questions coming in. Ian just wants to make this point. He says, last time we got a hard-fought 1-0 win was a certain Leeds away game from home a couple of years ago. Then we went on an unbeaten run, onwards and upwards. Mark says, thought there was a lot of negativity yesterday. I felt the expectation levels were up hugely as well. Brentford are a decent side, and we made changes. The win was the most important thing.
I think
Ferry Hill Mag says, by far Bruno's best game for a long time.
It's worth reminding everybody that Brentford aren't a pushover.
Yeah,
it's worth reminding everybody, like you did, about that form from the end of last season going into this season. They beat Spurs home and away last season. They're no mugs. They played nice football on their day. They're reasonably well organised. Mind you, I would do anything that manager told us because I would worry about waking up with a horse's head in my bed the next morning. Just a little bit too psycho for me. But at the same time, you know, they are well drilled. They know their rules, and they put good shifts in themselves. That what they are sometimes prone to, and what they did less of yesterday for me, are errors. We absolutely hassled them into errors when we stuffed 5 past them last season. And they cut that out of their game, and cutting that out of their game made them a different prospect. So, you know, I think it's worth reminding ourselves that it's not... you can't just say, oh, yeah, Brentford at home, that should be a rollover win. No, not in the modern Premier League.
No, it doesn't work like that, unfortunately. And let's remember, you know, those people who were going mental about Brighton beating us 3-1. Look at what they did yesterday. Went to Manchester United again, completely dominated the game, outplayed them, and beat them 3-1 in their own stadium. So there we go. Ferry Hill Mark says Shearer hit the nail on the head on Match of the Day. The result was all that matters, not the performance. It was a big 3 points. I think we all agree on that. And Stephen Kennedy says the result was the most important thing yesterday, but has to be said we're miles away from how we played last season. Where has the intensity gone? I just think we had a bad start to the season because of the fixture list. It was difficult, Stephen. And had that Liverpool game gone the way it should have gone and not a freak result, would we all have been saying that had we been 9 points now, sitting up there in the top? It was that 10 minutes at the end of the Liverpool game that really changed everybody's way of thinking. And I do believe that had we got 1 point or 3 points against Liverpool, we would have gone into the Brighton game on a completely different mindset. I think the lads were hungover from that Liverpool game. It's so difficult to pick yourself back up. If you've played any kind of competitive football, so difficult to pick yourself back up after a result like that. It's a proper kick in the nuts, that Liverpool game. And I just think we still really suffered. I think we really, really suffered. Spenny wants to know, would you stick with Pope or put Dubravka in? And this is something that's been brought up in the past. I mean, for me, I still personally would prefer to have another keeper in rather than Dubravka, because I do think he spoiled himself by going to Manchester United. I don't think he made it clear why he went. He made a big fuss about it being a bigger club. He then never got a game and had to come back with his tail between his legs. Now, I like Dubravka. I liked him when he was our number one. I really did. But I don't understand really why we've had to bring him back. I think he'll move on at some point. But I don't think there's much wrong with Karius. I genuinely don't. I would have rewarded a bit of loyalty, really, with Karius. That would be mine. But Pope's number one. He is my number one, and I wouldn't have Dubravka in the first team. That's my answer, Stu.
I'm with you all the way. I think Pope's done more than enough to justify he's the number one. And again, with Mitch, Steve, it was you that said the Liverpool game, I think it's had a knock-on effect. And I think more importantly, because it was Liverpool as well. And we know that there's a bit of, especially if you look at last season when we played down there, how the game finished. And it was more really, really important that we beat them. And then when you throw the game away like we did, of course it's going to hurt. And Pope made the mistake against Liverpool at home. That's what you missed the cup final for. And then you play them again. And irrespective of what anyone says, we dominated that game for 70 minutes, 80 minutes even. We've got caught out of naivety, 2 sucker punches. and that was only because we were trying to go and get the second goal to kill the game. But to me, yesterday showed that they learned not to do that, and they seen the game out. But I thought Pope was good yesterday. I think he commanded his box. Pardon the pun. I think he loves crosses. He's confident. he takes it well. He releases the ball well. Yes, he's not the best with his feet, but how many goalkeepers have we seen good with their feet that try these passes and get played into trouble? If you've got a team that's pressing properly, as we can do, then you don't want to keep her doing that. You want a keeper who's going to cut the press out, and that's it. Get him doing his job. I think the clean sheet yesterday will do him the world of good, and the defence as well. They look secure as a unit. Give or take a few isolated incidents in the first half hour, and I think Pope's a big part of that. I think he knows, especially with Shaw and Botman. I think they're comfortable with him, and the understanding he's got, you can see with Trippier. He always they're well drilled. They always get, when he's got the ball. Pope's got the ball. They all move to create space for him and give him more than one option. And it's when he hasn't got more than one option and he has to try and do something off the bat, that's when he gets himself into trouble. But that's what the press is about, isn't it? That's why we scream at the TV over at the match, scream at the pitch, press them, because if you press, you cause mistakes, you create errors from the opposition, and just sometimes he's been caught out. But he's won us far more points than he's going to lose us, and I'm really happy with Nick Pope being our number one goalkeeper.
Thoughts on the goalkeeper situation? I mean, I don't see a reason to bring Dubravka in.
Pope's my number one, quite clearly. I think it's changes for change's sake. I for one, he's talking about Pope's kicking. I'm not convinced with Dubravka's either, to be fair. Yeah. So I don't see what the benefit is in that change. It's changes for change's sake. Again, we're over-analysing. Yeah. We're looking at things through a microscope when we should be looking through just using our own eyes and seeing the bigger picture. If you start to make changes for change's sake, that's when the wheels come off.
Okay, there's a question from Anthony Stobart, which he sent last week. He says, "Hi, I hope you're well. Here's a possible out there question. What about changing Elgin Gardens into an additional fan zone? It's unused space and it could flourish. It also has a roof." Stu?
A possibility. There's got to be a few areas, but then you think of Elgin Garden, would you want people who are doing the shopping, and you get like a few hundred people coming out full of drink and that into a shopping centre? I don't think that's really, I can see that getting approved. I mean, I understand the reasoning behind the question, behind the statement, but I think there's better places than Elgin Garden. But this is why they're doing the stack, which will be temporary. You can tell by the design of it, it's temporary, which should, if you read between the lines, give us a bit more excitement that if it's only going to be temporary, that's because there's changes going to be made elsewhere around the stadium, and I think that'll be announced pretty soon once they get the planning permission that they need to extend the stadium.
Mitch,
if Elgin Gardens somewhere I've not been for a long time, but if that's somewhere that's struggling for retail and commercial space to be filled, I'm sure they would welcome any discussion from the club into doing something with them. But it, like Stu rightly says, that comes with the other side of that sword. Do you want everybody piling out into a shopping centre just before the match starts, full of drink? Not always the best combination. I can't see the police or the city council being terribly happy with that, particularly when there's so many other places to drink nearby.
Yeah,
and I think that's the next thing is I think if there's already been potential objections to the stack, I think anything in that location would be even more. I think you're then definitely treading on people's turf, as it were, and that's going to go down like a wasp in a spacesuit with some. So I think I think we stick to the notion that this is a temporary fan zone, and hopefully there is a much bigger plan to come down the line.
Okay. Yeah, go on, Stu.
That's just saying, we know what Stella's capable of from the boulevard in Riyadh. To me, even the plan with the stack, it looked like makeshift, just temporary, but they'll jazz it up as much as they can. I'm sure they'll have a much bigger plan further down the line that will have the wow factor, and it'll give us something as a city to be proud of.
Yeah. Okay, guys, do you think there'll be a backlash from Milan getting booed against Inter? Not sure whether that was a good result just before we played them. Still can't wait though. So yeah, we play Inter Milan, AC Milan, sorry, on Tuesday night in the Champions League. They didn't have the best of results. They would have had to have played, more or less the strongest team for a Milan derby. Didn't do them much good. Are we going to be walking in? Are we going to be walking into the lion's den and they're going to be like a wounded animal, or are they? Do you think that's going to knock their confidence, Stu?
I'd rather have got beat 5-1 than won 5-1 against Inter Milan. That's for sure.
Yeah, me too.
It could be, to me, I think it's a fantastic result. The confidence will be knocked and they'll be scared to make a mistake. And I can see Eddie Howe picking a team accordingly. There'll be a lot of pace up front. So I think Miggy's on to start. I think Miggy will start on Tuesday. I think Gordon will retain his place but go back on the left. And I think Isaac will start up front. And he won't get many forward lines faster than those three. And if they're trying to build their confidence and they're buzzing around like wasps in the bottle, that's the last thing they need. And that'll create the errors. And that's when you have the midfield. I think Tonali will play. I think Longstaff will be rested because he put so much shift in yesterday and he is just getting these back. He emptied his tank and someone else's the way the shift he put in yesterday, to be fair to him. I think we're going to go high tempo, high energy, and us winning and them losing like that, I think it swings the game very much in our favour.
Mitch?
Remember when there was a time when St James's Park sometimes wasn't the best place for us to play? The crowd would get edgy after 10, 15 minutes if nothing happened, and teams had a habit of coming and breaking losing streaks at St James's Park. And yeah, striker hasn't scored in 7 games, or he's at St James's Park and he gets 2. This could be AC Milan's moment like that. We get on top of them in the first 15 minutes. I suspect that's a crowd that could turn. That's a crowd that's there for the turning. Just being humped 5-1 at home off your local rivals, and then you're into the Champions League against the team probably nobody wanted to draw out a pot for. Let's be brutally honest. Everybody would have looked at pot 4 and said, don't want them, because they've seen what we can do. And I think this is a crowd that could be there for the turn, and if we get on top early. You're right, though. Are we walking into a wounded tiger or a fish in a barrel? I guess we just have to wait to find out. How they respond to this result, not being over dramatic for Milan, but it could make or break their season. If they were to say, we come away safe from the San Siro with, we get an early goal, get on top, and then pinch another one when they're pressing on later on, they're going to be at rock bottom. And that crowd could drive that, because I've been in crowds at St James's Park that haven't helped the team. God, when we were down. And I think there's every chance that the San Siro could be like that on Tuesday night.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Imagine Charlie plays and scores.
Oh,
one of their players, and they've just been up, and he comes with his new team.
Get the tiny violins out. We're already with them.
Yeah. I think the big pitch will help us. We'll be able to exploit it. We keep tight at the back, whack them on the break. I'm very confident that we'll win this on Tuesday. Then it'll rock Europe, make them all sit there and watch. And who's this team? We call it.
Everyone's welcome to Spenny's house. It's a ton ahead. You get 2 glasses of gin, same price as the keys, he says. And Andrew's not very happy. He's second bottom of the Super 6. He thinks he'll stick to knitting. Sam, he says, do you think a Mackham can spell Milan? And Alan says, think how we would feel if it had been Mackham's doing that here. Question for the chaps. Have you ever seen a Mackham in Milan? Definitely not. And AC Milan were dreadful last night. Derek says, why does the club allow the season ticket holder to pass on their ticket as long as the season ticket holder names a list of 3 people and supplies ID? Because that's up to it's up to the club what to do. That's what they've decided to do, and we can't really do anything about it. Is the answer to that question? Would you start Tonali on Tuesday night, Stu? Says Paul.
Absolutely. You'll know their quirks. You'll know a lot of their players, and I think he'll go back there, and I think he'll run the game. I really do. I can see him he'll have so much to prove, and he'll be full of adrenaline, and he'll utilise it in the right way. Where because of what they've just done, they'll make man mark him. I can see them having a player sent off. If the referee does his job properly, I can see Milan getting a player sent off, and we scampering away to a nice 3-1 win. But Tonali will start for me for sure.
And Isaac?
Aye, and Isaac. Tonali and Isaac.
Mitch, Tonali?
Aye. Quite why reason why they were both sat on the bench and stayed there at the weekend. They weren't needed. We secured the 3 points. They're fully fit for Tuesday. Thank you very much. The story's written for Tonali. And for Botman, remember. I remember they were crowing that they had signed him ahead of us.
Yep.
Not so long ago. You know, we've got a couple of players who could go to Milan and genuinely knock on the door and say, hi, do you remember me? So it's a story that writes itself.
Of course it is. Yeah, it's an exciting one. And that is, you know, it's just something to look forward to. And I think the Champions League, I've noticed a lot of these pundits, Stu, over the course of the last, you know, couple of weeks have said Newcastle will find this difficult. You know, the pressure's on. You know, they're not going to find it as easy as last season. But when Eddie Howe was asked about it in the press conference on Friday, he was talking about it as a trip on a plane. You know, he wasn't that particularly bothered about, you know, the games themselves. He's looking forward to the fixtures. And I got the impression from Callum Wilson as well. I love the fact that they're all in tune with what the gaffer says. So Callum Wilson was interviewed yesterday, and he said, you know, they were saying, has it been easy preparing for this game? Have you been looking ahead to Milan? He went, no, we're just focused on the Brentford game. You know, we'll analyse this. We'll look at what was right and what was wrong in this game, and then we'll start preparing for Milan. So he's got the team so well drilled, and I think as well, just, you know, the fact that he's not even looking at it as a competition between, you know, Newcastle, Milan, Paris Saint-Germain and Dortmund. He's simply saying, well, it's just another game. It's 11 against 11, and we'll go in and give it our best shot. I think that's a great way of dealing with it. It
is, and I'm sure Callum Wilson was just focused on Brentford, because I'd be very surprised if he starts against Milan. You've got to think of the players that we've signed since Eddie Howe's coming to be the manager. You've got the Trippiers, Tonali's, Bruno's, Botman, Isaac. They've all signed for these games. Do you know what I mean? They're all game players, and they've signed for that purpose. And I honestly think we're going to thrive. And we'll be tied anyone who takes us lightly and thinks, well, they're top 4 team. You know, they're just some like Slovakian League Cup winner. Let them find out. We went toe to toe with if you look at Liverpool and Man City, yes, they're not the best results we got, but take it to last season as well as this season, we went toe to toe with them and weren't embarrassed. And Man City are the best team in Europe. And they beat us 2-0 last year, 1-0 this year. We drew 3-3 when really we could have won it. We're getting better and better. And if we're a goal behind Man City, that puts 2 or 3 goals up ahead of everyone else. I've got no problem with us going to AC Milan, really. They'll have a lot of trepidation about us turning up than us going there. We'll go there, we'll enjoy it. The lads, as you've just mentioned, Steve, will know exactly what they need to do. I think already most of them know what position they're playing in and everything else and how they're going to play it. And it's the earlier kickoff as well. So we'll get more people watching us than normally around Europe and the Middle East I'm talking about. Because it's over here, it's 7:45 kickoff, 8:45 in Dubai, depends on the timeline. So it's not like it's a midnight kickoff. as the later ones are. So this is where we're going to have an opportunity to go out on a big stage. And I think the team talk will do itself. Just go out and enjoy yourselves, lads. Just go and have some fun. And keep to the basics, keep to what you know. And seriously, I can just think we'll dominate the midfield. They've a reason I think that Miggy plays is a Leo there, left back. I think that's his name. He's very, very fast. He's a good player as well. So I think Miggy is willing to do the graft and chase him back. We'll nullify their strengths, and I think our team's better than us. And that's not just because they got beat 5-1, but as I said it on an earlier programme, the fourth best team in the Premier League should be better than the fourth best team in the Italian League. And I think we'll prove that throughout this group.
Yeah, I would agree. The Milan game is something we can look forward to, as is Paris Saint-Germain and Borussia Dortmund. But I'm just saying, Mitch, it's the way that Eddie not nullifies this, but it's just another game. And that you know, you can hear it in Wilson. You can hear it with Wilson when he was interviewed yesterday after the match, that, you know, they do literally follow his mantra of one game at a time. Yeah, it's a little bit further to go than it would be getting the train to London or getting a flight to London. It's a little bit further, but we'll prepare exactly the same way. We're a football team, and at the end of the day, it's a game of football. Well,
I think that's something else that he's done. He's taken advantage of the rule about when we travel, and we're not travelling and training the day before in the San Siro. We're just going to turn up on the day and go to the match as we would normally. Yeah, and he's keeping everything normal. And I think that's important. He's sort of saying, well, this isn't anything out of the ordinary. It's another game. It's my next game. And I think that's absolutely the way to think about it. Looking forward, particularly for Tuesday night, because we've got Robbie Elliott joining the Dubai Mags this week before the Milan game. He's doing a little bit of a talking and a chat with her before the game kicks off. So that should be fun. Bringing something different to the Dubai Mags, and, you know, ramping it up for Europe, and that's the way it should be.
Tom Dixon says, who do you think Milan's main threat's going to be on Tuesday?
The left back I mentioned, is it Leo or something like that he's called? Theo, I can't remember. Hernandez, basically, that's him. He's very, very quick, and that's just to reiterate what I've just said. That's why I think he'll play, because he's got the pace. You can run back with him and just be a body in the way. And if that's their main threat, we'll have it covered. And it's good for us. We'll have someone with European know-how, like Trippier's sitting there. If he does advance too far, he'll be able to show him the. I'm more confident about beating AC Milan than I was about beating Brentford, and I thought we'd beat Brentford 4-0. So I honestly believe we'll win comfortably on Tuesday. Maybe 2 over. I honestly think we will.
Rafael Leo, Dave. That's who must be that you're referring to. Ferry Hill Mag says, is Mad Dog allowed in the technical area in the Champions League? I think so, but they seem to be dovetailing quite nicely, and they seem to be able to have that chat anyway. I don't think that always works particularly well. Yeah, biggest threat on Tuesday? I think it's ourselves, Mitch.
Yeah,
I think
you just take the word out of your mouth. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Complacency. You know, being like a rabbit, or being like a rabbit in the headlights. One of those two things could affect it. But I think if we go in with the professional attitude that we've got, and have had since Eddie Howe came in, I believe we can get a result on Tuesday.
It's interesting to mention both Giroud and Lukaku, who were both in their time very good Premier League strikers. But this isn't the 90s when we would get their players at the end of their careers getting their swan song. It's the other way around now. When you're coming across some of the Italian strikers, they're the ones who've had that time in the Premier League. We come across better than those two week in, week out in the Premier League. If we didn't, they'd still be playing in the Premier League. And you've got to doubt Romelu Lukaku's mental application when you see how he's been passed from pillar to post, because he's really just there to pick his wages up, no matter where he is. I think Giroud was a different beast. I think he still has a bit of desire and passion, but I also, I don't know whether he's carrying an injury or not. So for me, like you've just said, our own biggest enemy could just be ourselves if we get a little bit starstruck and sort of realise what we're doing in the middle of it. I think that's why Eddie wants to keep everything as normal as possible.
Yeah, but Mitch mentioned there the Trippier, Tonali, Isaac, Bruno, Botman. Go. That's it's a simple team talk, guys. You are big game players. This is a big game. Go and express yourselves.
Yeah.
Don't you know what I mean? Don't get it. Let you play your head. Go out and be yourself. Show that you guys deserve to be in the Champions League. You are Champions League standards. Go and prove it today. And I think if you already have the everything else, as long as it's controlled, I think we can massive performance from Newcastle on Tuesday.
Is this kickoff thing something to do with what we were discussing the other night, Mitch, on the Amigos? Is it down to global audiences and
yes.
times? Yeah, that's what we're discussing on Friday, isn't it?
It's about maximising audiences and splitting the games up so you don't have too many games running at the same time. And because that's what the broadcasters want. The broadcasters, there's a hierarchy. This is something I discussed with Joe Morrison a couple of years ago. Who used to do NUFC TV, and he does a load of stuff out here in the Middle East. And we'd go for a coffee every now and again and catch up, and about how basically the broadcasters have got data that say when, say, Liverpool play Man City, there's exponentially more viewers than, say, Man United versus Crystal Palace, who have exponentially more viewers than, say, Brentford against Crystal Palace.
That game yesterday, Mitch. Fulham versus Fulham played Luton yesterday. That would have exactly. And so, what the broadcasters want is to maximise the games they can broadcast, which are like, Barcelona against Bayern Munich or Dortmund against PSG. They want to maximise the games like that they can broadcast to catch as much audience as possible, and the way to do that is to split the kickoff times up.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to see how it works out, and that's why there's this change to the new system for Champions League for next year, this mad Swiss chess system, which then gives you more of those big teams versus big teams games, and also benefits the big teams because they can afford to lose the odd one and they won't necessarily get knocked out early. So for the broadcasters, it's win-win.
Yeah, it is. I'm going to get your predictions. Just to let you know, I am doing Talk TV with Sagas 7:40 tonight. I've stuck the channel up on the comments there. If you want to follow it, there you go. It's on Sky 522, Virgin Media 606, Freeview 237, FreeSat 217, and Apple TV, Fire TV, Samsung TV 4316. Well worth a watch, that program, even when I'm not on it, because it's 2 hours of football crack with Sagas, who I always say is probably one of the best in the business, and he's on Talk TV. Not a channel I watch a great deal, I've got to be honest, but I do like to watch Sagas on a Sunday. I think he gets some great guests on and talks a lot of sense, and he's certainly all for the fans. And just a reminder, I have pinned it in the chat, our retro channel, courtesy of my dad, who has worked his way through a lot of games, transferred them from videotape to MP4. We're loading a lot of these games on another YouTube channel that we've got. So if you get yourself over to NUFC Matters backup channel, we've some absolute classics from 91 to 93, some great games, and there's some full games. And one of my mates gave us a set of discs. My dad's managed to get the stuff off there. So we're just sticking them up. They're all free. Get yourself on there if you like to watch a little bit of retro. We're sticking a load of stuff over there. So Stu, give us your predictions, please, because I'm going to have to go off and do my hair before I get on this big TV network.
I've already bet 3-1, and just as you were giving the build up there, I've just put a separate bet on Newcastle at 25-1 to win 3-0.
Okay, what about you, Mitch?
AC Milan 0, Eddie Howe's Shithouse Mags 2.
Okay, I'm going to go for a 2-1 win as well. I think Newcastle's going to win this game. I'm very confident about it. Of course, we will have the fans forum tomorrow night, 6 till 7. Tuesday will be the Premier League show. And Wednesday night will be Geordie's Here, Geordie's There. Although Geordie's Here, Geordie's There will be pre-recorded. But lads, as always, great to spend a Sunday night with you. Well done as well after your monumental session over the weekend. Putting a quality performance as always, lads. That's why you're called the professionals. Stu, Mitch, take care, lads. See you soon.
Cheers, everyone.